Hey folks, hope you're all doing well and welcome back to the channel. So tonight we're going to talk about bands that we came to late for whatever reason. Maybe they got past our radar originally and then later on we heard about them enough and they piqued our interest and we did some investigating. So we've all picked five bands that we got into late, and we're just going to go through them and talk about them and hopefully have some fun here tonight. So to help me with that endeavor, we got Mr. Martin Popoff, Mr. P. Pardo. How you gentlemen doing?
Doing well.
Doing good, Heck.
I'm ready for this.
All right, cool. So what we'll do is we'll go 2, 2, and 2, and then we'll have our last band for the end. And we'll just talk about the bands and maybe why it took a while and kind of go from there. So just to give you a little more time, let's start with Pete and then Martin and then myself.
Okay. So I took the approach of bands that maybe I had heard about, maybe had heard a little bit, but just never really dove into their catalog till many, many years later. And then, when that time finally came, I was like, shit, where's this band been all my life? Why did it take me so long to really fully investigate this band? And the first one really that I thought of here is a little band from Canada. In fact, my first two are from Canada, Max Webster.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I didn't start listening to Max Webster till probably like late 90s, early 2000s. And, had heard the name for many years. Remember that they used to come play live in this area in the Hudson Valley in New York quite a bit when I was really young. I remember them. They opened up for Rush and a couple of the bands here and there. And I always remember hearing the Kim Mitchell solo stuff on the radio, the EP and the first couple of albums, but I just never bothered to explore the music of Max Webster. And then when I finally did, I mean, they're like completely right up my alley. This is like the type of band that I love. I mean, they're quirky, they rock, they're proggy and all that sort of stuff. And then I just decided to go out and get the catalog. And thankfully, there's not a lot of albums, right? So I just went. In fact, I've picked these up numerous times. I got the original CD versions, and then I got that box set. But a great band. And I just wish I would have picked up on them earlier. They were kind of done when I was going to concerts, starting in 81. So by then they're already either on their way out or, close to it. But a really great band. And I wish I would have, had these albums to listen to all throughout the 80s and the early 90s. So it's a shame it just took so long. So yes, that's my first pick, Max Webster. And my second, believe it or not, I only really just started getting into this last year. I remember their big hits on the radio. There were only a couple of them. And I remember liking them enough back in the day. But again, never bothered to buy their albums or anything like that. That band is also from Canada, Honeymoon Suite. Very cool band. Maybe at the time when Honeymoon Suite was kind of at the height of their popularity, maybe I was just into heavier stuff. But I remember, New Girl Now and Feel It Again. Great songs. I dug them back then, but I just never bothered to go any further. Now I'm kind of this is fun stuff. It's just good, catchy, melodic rock, which I love. Great songs. I tell you, I think Feel It Again was one of the great, kind of hits that should have been a monster hit in the 80s. That's became my song of the summer of 2025. I listened to Feel It Again all the time, all summer long for whatever reason. And this album, which is The Big Prize, one of my favorites from them, but I have all of them now, and just really great band. And again, why I never bothered to go any further, don't really know, but I love them now, and better late than never. So
sweet.
It's funny you mentioned those two bands because both of them were FM rock staples in Canada. You couldn't listen to Q107 and not hear at least one Max Webster song or 2 or 3 a day. So it was really ingrained in us, right?
Yeah, they were a non-entity here, completely non-entity.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then you say Feel It Again, and you say, well, it wasn't a big hit. Here it was massive.
Yeah,
it's all it's all where you're coming from. So let me just quickly say hello to the folks. I should have said hello at the top, but let me just quickly go through a few people here, and then we'll get back to it. So we got Timothy watching. Welcome, Timothy. There's Gary Joyce, always here. Always a pleasure to see you. Rob Fulton is with us. Brian S. How you doing, buddy? Brian sending me a gets here. Davey Cretan is here. Just go down quickly. What else is Ricky Compton, welcome West Coast State. How you doing? There's a Dark Wizard. Welcome, folks.
Hack, you got some funny stuff going on with your audio, eh?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what's going
Well,
on?
Oh, now you're fine again.
Oh, okay, I don't know
what
what
was
that
going
was.
on.
Yeah, StreamYard did some weird shit, and I'm still trying to get used to it. So Christopher's with us. Dave. Okay, I think I got everybody. Robbie. Oh, Rabia's with us. Jason Budney, welcome. Wow, everybody's rolling in. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, Martin, what do you got? What are your
Okay, so I don't have props for this first band, but the Grateful Dead. So my approach to this was, these are bands I got into late. It still might have been a long time ago. But I mean, Grateful Dead's an interesting one where I remember definitely never being into them until the moment I moved to Toronto for some reason. I mean, there's no reason it corresponds, but I got here in I think late 89, 90 or something from out west. And I remember getting into the roots rock, the folky version of the band, the it's American Beauty, I think it's called, right? With Uncle John's band and all that, and Working Man's Dead. So I got into them at that point, and then later just absolutely adored the whole Donna God show era. And I did a Contrarians video, or what did I do? I think I did a Facebook post about Donna dying recently. So I absolutely think Terrapin Station and Shakedown Street are classics. I like Go to Heaven as well, and I like the last couple they did. I still the jury's still out. I still don't really particularly get into the early dense psychedelic stuff. And then there's that whole Wake of the Flood sort of era in there that I'm not a big fan of. And I don't care about the whole live ethic either. And covers. I love Jerry Garcia band as well, Cats Under the Stars, but again, that's Donna. And so those are the masterpieces to me. But I did get into them late. And I think the theme that you're going to feel here with me is that, there's a lot of these bands where, as I grew up in the 70s, I was a complete angry metalhead. Everything mathematically basically had to be heavy or I wasn't into it, sort of thing. And Grateful Dead was, it was, I got all that vinyl along the way. But I did end up getting the 2 big box sets that had everything. There's an early box and a later box. They're really nice. So yeah, I love that stuff. And Donna's passing, that was too bad. She's one of my favorite female vocalists of all time. But so that's my first choice, Grateful Dead. Second, let's go with this one. Madness. Madness is a band from, so we've got Can't Touch Us Now, recent stuff, and Liberty of Norton Folgate, also recent stuff. I think this is 2012 and 2009, something like that. 2009. And also this came in very handy, Madness, The Lot, which is just, a whole pile of all their early albums. This is a band from that whole two-tone ska post-punk era where they're mixing, slightly up-tempo reggae with semi new wavishness. Madness was one of the bands from that. I skipped over all this whole thing. I mean, another theme with me will be this idea of an era that I went through, but I skipped bands from that era, and you go back and find bands from an era that you love that you completely ignored at the time, kind of thing. So it's a different kind of nostalgia. But I've tried the English Beat, and who else is in there?
Specials.
Not a fan of either of those bands, but Madness with Suggs and this whole English accent and all this heavy London thing. It's got me going on YouTube and watching London documentaries and tours of London and stuff. This almost is, I believe I did a New York episode of my podcast, History in 5 Songs. I don't know if I ever did the London one, but if I did, Madness would be almost like the most London band I can possibly think of. They were big in the UK as well. I just love them, and I get in the car, depending which one of my iPod classics is in the car. Madness is all over one of them and not on the other, but I'll just gravitate to that stuff and just play it over and over and over again. So it's not particularly ska or anything like that. It's just really good quality conservative poppy rock music, I think, in the later years, and they're still going. So yeah, Madness is my second choice.
Yeah, I'm amazed that I thought they were just within that period. I had no idea that they kept going, because I only know them from watching those early videos.
Our House, the big song, right, from the early days.
One Step Beyond, that wasn't Madness, was it?
Yeah.
That was Madness too. Yeah. That's the video I remember watching as a.
But Our House is One Step Beyond from One Step Beyond. So we got One Step Beyond, Absolutely Seven, The Rise and Fall. But Our House is the huge song.
Yeah,
it's
that's
exquisitely written song. Just a beautifully put together constructed song, right?
Very good pop song. Yeah, I really dig that one. Yeah, I like that stuff back in the day. It was different, man. It was, and the whole look of the black and white, and the whole. I mean, I like the English beat too. Like "Mirror in the Bathroom" was one of my favorite songs, and I like that whole scene. We used to have this show here called The New Music, and they always used to feature these bands from England, and
cool.
Alrighty, so my first pick is a band that I'm gonna blame Pete for this. Pete loves this band. He's loved them for years and years and years, and I decided to take a run at him. And I'm telling you, man, it was, some bands are easy to kind of, get into, and other bands, it's just like you're getting lost in the weeds. It takes a lot of effort. It's a concerted effort to find something that you like. And I'm talking about this band right here, Jethro Tull. I'm not into the whole big epic tunes that they do. I mean, they just kind of go on and on. Like I said, you kind of get lost in the weeds after a while. And it's like, is that the same song from 10 minutes earlier? Is that got something else? There's that, and the whole concept thing. What I do find is there's basically two things in common with the stuff that I like. One is Martin Barr is doing some great electric guitar playing on it, and the second is the songs are just shorter lengths, right? So and I haven't gone through the entire catalog. I've been going through it chronologically, but so far the albums I like, and I listened to these two just again the other day. Benefit is a great record.
I knew you were going to say that.
Okay. Songs from the Wood, like that one. Heavy Horses, I like. Yep. And my favorite is the one I showed earlier, which is the popular favorite, which is Aqualung. But but I mean, the songs that are just go on and on and on. Like, I mean, I listen to Thick as a Brick. I'm like, okay, this is one of their popular records. This one I should enjoy, because a lot of people like this record. And it was just, I mean, it had the two strikes long songs and concept, and I can't do it. But I mean, the musicianship of the guys, I love Ian's voice, and and his lyrical content is very whimsical, and I like all of that, and the playing is amazing, and that's a hard band to kind of pick away at, but if you dig deep enough, you'll find something. And so far these are the records that I've found.
Have you listened to Minstrel in the Gallery yet?
See that one? I remember you mentioning that. I couldn't do that one. That one was a little
wow.
Yeah, that one I couldn't do. I know. But I'll talk about another band that has long songs that I have no problem with, but I'll save that one for a little bit later. And the other one is a band that we did a ranking on your channel, Pete, a couple of years ago. And this band was new to me at the time, and they've stuck with me, and I'm still listening to them today. And I'm talking about Clutch.
There you go.
Man, do I love Clutch. And that record particularly Psychic Warfare. Listen to that again. If that is a damn near perfect.
I was listening to that in the car yesterday, and it was clutch all day today too in the car.
Holy shit, man! It's just relentless.
Love
just
clutch. Yeah.
every song is great. You know, the playing is amazing. You know, the band is just, it's like they're this crazy mix of heavy, you know, funk. There's blues, there's some southern swamp stuff, and there's some doom in there, and it's just all these different parts and riffs. And you know, Neil's got a set of pipes on him, man, and his lyrics are, you know, again, whimsical, funny. You know, he's got some pretty cool lyrics. And man, Tim Salt as a guitar player, that guy's like a riff monster. And he is not afraid of using guitar effects pedals, man. He's got like a different tone. He'll go through a bunch of different tones within a song just to accent the different parts and his solos. And he's not doing anything like crazy technical, but it doesn't have to be. It's just, it's perfect. It's like right on, you know? And man, I love that drummer, John Paul Gaster. What a wicked drummer that guy is. He just lays it down. He's, you know, he's busy, but it's always within the groove, you know. And the Ricky bass of I wrote the bass player's name here a minute ago, Dan Maines. Love the sound of the Ricky bass. It always pops out of the mix. You know, he played, I think he did Fenders earlier on, and then the more recent records he's been on a Ricky. But man, oh man, what a fantastic band. This is one of those bands that I've recommended to people, man. Go check out Clutch. And I turned actually, speaking of bass players, the guy who plays in my band, the bass player, I turned him on to Clutch. I said, listen to Psychic Warfare. And now he's a fan of Clutch. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal band, man. I can't, I've watched so many Clutch concerts because there are tons of them on YouTube. And they're all well shot, and they sound really, really good.
Even better, Hack. Watch their videos. They're hilarious. So they're just so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Great band, man. Just you know, they're just doing it right. You know, everybody says a rock is dead. Go listen to Clutch and shut the hell up. You know.
Yeah.
But anyways, those are my two.
Nice.
All right. What do you got next?
All right, so my next choice is a band / artist who inexplicably, like when I was growing up, never listened to. Always knew who they were, who he was. And I remember people telling me, well, based on all the other stuff you listened to, you really should listen to this band, this artist, right? And I was like, yeah, I probably should. Just never got around to it. And then, like in the early '90s, remember Columbia House, right? When you started buying everything, I got the greatest hits from Alice Cooper, and thinking I probably should own something by Alice Cooper, right? So, and I remembered all the radio songs and stuff, and I remember getting the greatest hits, and it was basically all the stuff I knew from the radio, and I was like, yeah, this stuff's good, right? And then I never went any further till probably like maybe a decade later. And then I don't know what it was. I had a friend who was a big fan, and he kept saying, you know, you really should listen to Alice. You like Kiss, and you like all these other bands and whatnot. And it's like, how did you never listen to Alice Cooper growing up? And I went out and bought Love It to Death and Killer and this great album, $1 Billion Babies. And then I was like, oh, okay. Going beyond the hits, and granted, some of the hits are on there, those albums as well, but thinking that this is just totally up my alley, right? Just gloomy, doomy, kind of gothic 70s rock. Some of it's pretty heavy, some of it's just kind of poppy and very cool. And that was it. And at the time, I started buying some of the 2000s albums. I got all the 70s records, and I'm just kind of like, man, I had never seen him live either until probably shortly thereafter. I've seen him like probably 3 or 4 times in the 2000s now, but but it's just one of those bands from that era that like everybody else was listening to, and I just never did. Never disliked it. Like I said, always liked the radio tracks, but just never bought any of the albums. And so I had to play catch up, and I went and got within a span of a couple of years, I got like the entire catalog, and now I'm a big fan. I've read books, I've gone to see him live, and you know, but can't jump on everything, I guess, when it happens, right? So so that's my next one. My other one, I'm going to give Martin a lot of credit for, because this is a band that I had convinced myself I just didn't really care for. heard and owned a few of their albums. Didn't really give them a lot of time. I would convince myself I didn't really like the singer's voice all that much. I convinced myself they weren't heavy enough. I convinced myself they weren't proggy enough. And then Martin and Butch Jones were like, oh man, I can't believe you of all people don't like King's X. And, you know, Martin's like, you know, Martin talks very highly of them. And I said, all right, I'm going to give them another try. I think we put on the calendar to do a ranking the albums thing. And I said, I'm going to go out and get the ones that I don't have. And I did. And I'm listening to these records and I'm like, yeah, this shit's great. It's like, what was wrong with me all these years? Right. So, yeah, and I found out I really didn't dislike Doug's vocals at all. I really liked Ty's guitar playing, and I loved their songwriting and the vocal harmonies, and this kind of like Beatles meets kind of like alternative metal meets prog. And, you know, maybe, you know, people were telling me for years that they're this great prog metal band. I really don't hear a prog metal band with King's X. I hear lots of other things, but I think once I kind of figured out what they actually are and what they're all about, I really liked what they were all about, but I didn't have some kind of preconceived notion. So yeah, King's X, great stuff, great catalog, no bad albums, a lot of really great ones. Dogman, second album, right? It's some really, really good stuff. So yeah, that's my next choice.
Sweet. Nice.
They get lumped in with that early 90s kind of grunge thing.
Yeah,
You know?
maybe they kind of came up at a weird time, right?
Yeah. 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 I think they were in the wrong time. But anyway. All right. What do you got next, Martin?
Okay, so next I've got good old John Cougar.
Oh, wow.
You know, could not stand this guy coming up in the early 80s, mid 80s. It was just for the same reasons I don't like Bon Jovi and the same reasons I don't like Bryan Adams. Didn't care. I was a metalhead. It was, you know, he was kind of a he was kind of a just a poppy thing that young people or girls liked or whatever. It was just like a pinup star sort of thing. And then, you know, as we're moving through albums like this, and then, boy, I've got a stack of CDs here, but which will show in a second. But let me find the one. Yeah. So next we go. We kind of transition as we're going through here, and my wife and I went and saw him live on the tour for this record. I got the thing stuck in there, but the you know, this he was having a resurgence with the Whenever We Wanted. I mean, he's just a huge star the whole time, but I just, so seeing him live, I was completely blown away and won over about like what a great showman he is, and, you know, meticulously picking great band members and just being really cool. And I just saw him kind of grow up through that era of being considered a little bit superfluous, and then all of a sudden he becomes kind of like the baby Bruce Springsteen. And then, and you know, and I'm reading interviews and seeing how irascible he is, and how, you know, uncompromising he is, and, you know, smoking up a storm like Angus Young, you know, and cheats death over and over again. And he just strikes me as as great an artist as Bruce Springsteen, and someone who I actually prefer to Bruce Springsteen, because I find the music a little more exciting. It's a little more rock and roll. It's got a little more drums to it. But, you know, in later years, we get records that look like that called John Melencamp. We've got Human Wheels, you know, Trouble No More. You know, lots of albums, Plain Spoken. You know, he's kind of like the, like I say, the Bruce Springsteen, the Woody Guthrie, the Bob Dylan. Dance Naked was a big album as well, with big singles, cutting heads. So yeah, I think a little bit of a theme here with also actually one of my next choices. The theme is a combination of seeing him live and loving that, and then just seeing him grow up and be just this literary figure. He reminds me of Elvis Costello as well. Just this great songwriter, and with a little bit of an edge to him. and just a little more adventurous. Moves away from that horns sound and stuff that you get with Bruce Springsteen. I prefer it. In there's Bryan Adams, which I do not like at all. I get no value out of Bryan Adams, but Bryan Adams is basically the early John Cougar to me, right?
Yeah.
And he never grew out of that, and he never got any better. But John Melencamp just vaulted past Bruce Springsteen for me. So I just love that about him. Okay, so that was one choice, right? Was that just one? I think it's just one. Yeah. Okay, so I got one more. Okay, so same theme. Little Feat. So Little Feat is a band that I was not into at all during the Lowell George era. This is one of the later ones from the Lowell George era. We know Lowell George died of a heroin overdose. But when they reformed in the 80s without him, I just loved these records. And again, what happened was I got to see them live at the Phoenix Ballroom here in is it called the Ballroom? I don't know. It's called the Ballroom in Toronto. In the Sean Murphy era, where they had a female vocalist, co-female vocalist, and got to drive them around, meet them, that's where I got all this stuff signed, hung out on the bus with them, talked to Richie Hayward about Robert Plant. It was great, right? It was a great time before the show. And the show was one of the greatest live concerts I've ever seen. And they just went on a tear with these albums that I love more than the classics from the early days. Your Sailing Shoes and Dixie Chicken and all that. I'm totally into these records even more. And they were very prolific. So again, same kind of thing. A late renaissance for me, or late getting into them. And in this case, it's mixed up with getting to meet all the guys as well. That was really cool. And just have a lot of value for this reunion era where you're missing the legend, but it doesn't matter to me because I think they're even better when obviously those early ones are absolute classics as well. But love Little Feat to death, and it was a completely late arrival, and then mixed in, of course, with me being an angry young metalhead, and there was no way I was going to be into this stuff early on, even when I was drumming and being a prog person and all that kind of stuff. This stuff was way off in the distance. There was no Eagles and Jackson Brown and Poco and Flying Burrito Brothers or whatever they're called, and Pure Parade and Outlaws and all that stuff. There was none of that for me. Little Feat kind of fits into that a little bit. They sound like a Southern rock band, but they're from California. But yeah, love Little Feat. So those are my two choices.
Yeah, I've never made a run at Little Feat. I couldn't tell you anything about Little Feat. Not one song.
It's bluesy, it's funky, it's Steely Dan, it's Southern rock, it's a little complicated, maybe a little Santana, a little bit of that Avocado Mafia, Troubadour, Laurel Canyon sound in there as well. It's just very smart. It's like a scholarly version of that boring singer-songwriter thing from California. It's like a cross between that and Steely Dan. So Steely Dan's even more intellectualized and scholarly, and Little Feat's kind of in the middle, and more percussive. A little Grateful Dead, I suppose, to it as well, right, Pete? Would you say? Yep. Rhythmically, right? Rhythmic complication going on with those guys. So yeah, little bit of all of that together.
Really funky too. Very swampy, funky.
Super critically acclaimed. I mean, the critics love them to death. Ted Templeman Productions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, you piqued my interest. I gotta give them a go.
Yeah.
All right. So this next one, I got into these guys, I'm gonna say 10, 15 years, maybe. And it's just because they kind of flew in the radar. In their heyday, they kind of got lost in the mix in the 80s, you were hearing a lot about Priest and Maiden and Motorhead, and they were kind of in that mix. But the only song I remember seeing them, or video I remember seeing them back then, was for this album and this song. And I'm talking about Saxon. Like, they were just kind of always there, but sort of one step behind, if you will, like not at the forefront, but kind of always there, but a little behind. And man, they got an incredible catalog. We did a ranking show here on Saxon not too long ago, and they're still putting out quality records. We part of our top 10, I think Pete and I both had the newest one, Hellfire and Damnation. Great record. you know but yeah, they just never really, I know, we're at the forefront. So I came to them quite late, and man, they were putting out in the 80s, in their heyday. Their stuff is on par with the bands I mentioned earlier. Like, they were right up there with Priest, and Maiden, like from Wheels of Steel right up to Power and the Glory. I mean, those are all fantastic records. They're 80s metal classics, and those are my favorite records, is sort of that period. And Denim and Leather is my favorite record of theirs. But I'm glad I finally got into them. I mean, they just, I don't know, they just never really got a ton of exposure. So there was one of those bands where you kind of had to, find it yourself, sort of thing. But yeah, Saxon is a great band. So if anybody else has missed on Saxon and likes, that classic metal from the 80s, go check out some Saxon. Great guitar playing too, twin guitar solos, soloists on the band. And Biff is out there belting it. It's good. It's a good band. Great music. What else we got here? Okay, and the other one, and for the same reason, this is another band that kind of got lost in the shuffle for me. They never really had any big radio hits back in the 70s when they were sort of in their heyday. And, I mean, you're hearing about, Aerosmith and Kiss and Thin Lizzy. And again, this band is sort of one step back of those bands and never got as much notoriety. And again, it's within the last, I'd say, 10, 15 years. But man, UFO, great band, like great music, great songs on the level of the bands that I just mentioned. No big radio hits per se, but man, for me, and the whole appeal for me with them specifically is Michael Schenker. I mean, and the records that they did with Michael Schenker, those 70s records, starting from Phenomenon onwards, just really, really good songs, good playing. And there's a lot of variety in their music too. I mean, they had this straight up heavy rock songs, but they did a lot of experimentation and departures and stuff, in the music, and some really interesting songs. It's not just, a whole album full of bangers, which is kind of good. I like variety when I'm listening to an entire album. I don't like 10 of the same thing. But yeah, Phenomenon up to Obsession, that's like a golden period. And I mean, they continued after that, obviously, and I think they just packed it in like recently, right? A couple of years ago, Phil Mock said that's
Yep.
enough. But and then Shanker did come back and he did one record later on, which I'm not a huge fan of. But yeah, the Shanker albums are amazing. We did a ranking of UFO too. There was one record that I did like. Vinnie Moore did 2 records with them, I think. There's one record, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's got like an alien on the cover.
There's about 5 or 6 now.
Yeah, like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
There's one with like an alien or a robot on the cover or something. That one I liked, but that whole Shanker period is gold. And if anyone hasn't taken the trip down the UFO lane, man, go for it, because yeah, some really, really good stuff there. And if you're a guitar player, you're a fan of guitar, Shanker is just the shit, like literally. That guy just had a way of, I mean, his solos are just unfucking believable. And I don't think he planned anything out. Like when you're listening to him, it's all sounds like kind of stream of conscience, like conscience. Like they just put him in the thing and they played the track and he just played whatever came into his head. And he just has this ability, just to beautiful melodic solos, and the highlights of the song. It's one of those bands where like you're listening to it and then you can't wait for that solo because it's just going to take it up a notch. I absolutely love Shaker, and his solo stuff's amazing too. So there you go. Yeah, but I was late to UFO. All right, last ones. What do you got, Pete?
All right, my final one is so their 1981 album. When I was in high school, I remember a buddy of mine had gotten a hold of it, and he made me a cassette tape of the album, and I played it all the time. And then I remember the cassette tape broke, and I never did anything else about it. I was thinking, oh, it sucks I don't have that tape anymore. Probably should have went out and bought the album from the band, but I didn't. And then I just kind of forgot about them for many, many years. And this band has a weird history. They've had lots of different singers, lots of different lineups. They never really got that big. I did get to see them live once. I thought they were really good, but again, I never went any further. That band is from New York. The band is Riot.
Mm.
And I loved Fire Down Under. And I should have, as soon as that tape kind of self-destructed, I should have went out and bought this. I never did. I never got any of their earlier albums. I just kind of forgot about them, and I got into thrash and all this other stuff that was the heavy stuff that was coming out, and I just kind of forgot about Riot. And then, like maybe sometime in the 90s, I said, you know what, I need to go get Fire Down Under, and I liked it even more than I remembered. And then I went out and got stuff like Narita and Thundersteel and Rock City, and then I kind of stopped there, and then because I was like, all right, that's the classic era stuff. And then I don't know, like a year or so ago, I was like, people started asking me to do a Riot album ranking. And I'm like, oh, they got a shit ton of albums. I only have like maybe a handful of them. I was like, all right, so let me go start getting some of the stuff I'm missing. And I started listening to their newer albums, after Mark Reale passed away, and they're amazing. And I started getting like the Mike Domino era and all these other ones that I just never listened to, and thinking, man, this band is, no matter what the lineup is, no matter what era of Riot, it's all great stuff. And I just like completely fell in love with this band. They've become like one of my favorite like discoveries of an old band that I should have been into a million years ago. So yeah, that's my final pick for today, Riot. And again, I'm amazed at how many great albums this band has released over the years that just never got any due at all. To me, one of the most underrated hard rock or metal bands ever. Their stuff is so amazing. No matter who's singing or playing with them, it's all great, and they should have been huge.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, what's your last one there, Martin?
Well, I was debating going with something like, I'm so into post-punk lately. So Susie and the Banshees, I've been playing a lot. Echo and the Bunnymen, I've been playing a lot, over and over, learning their catalogs. I thought about the Doors. I got into them late, but we did a similar show on the Contrarians like this. And I know I talked about this band there. I didn't talk about any of these previous bands there, but I don't know how I can make this sound interesting, but the Rolling Stones. There's a weird relationship I have with the Stones, where I was not into them early. How do I phrase this? So as I'm approaching university years, they ramp up with Some Girls and Emotional Rescue, and there's already an excitement about the Stones. A new, it's probably their third wave at this point, right? I get into university in 1981. I'm at UBC, and all of a sudden, the Kinks are all the rage, and Tattoo You is all the rage, right? So everybody's into the Stones at that point. So I'm getting into them late, but I guess what I wanted to say more than anything is, as the decades roll on, I just constantly keep going back and listening to various eras of the Stones and getting into them. So, with the theme of your show, Hack, with who did you get into late? I mean, I could say even in the last 5 years, the Stones are a band that I've thought about in like, say, the top 5 bands over the last 5 and 10 years. And it's going back to Dirty Work, and it's going back to Undercover, and let's take another run at Steel Wheels, and let's Bridges of Babylon or whatever, or even Wandering Spirit from Mick Jagger, I did a very detailed review of the new one, right? So it's interesting that I think I've decided that the Stones, they just have so much to offer in all the eras. And even when we're putting down albums that we're supposed to not like, there's still a lot to get into there. So that is your undercover era or whatever, right? Dirty Work.
Dirty Work, yeah.
But also even like, I've rediscovered, so I came really late to loving to death. It's Only Rock and Roll and Goat's Head Soup. I always was a massive Black and Blue fan. I've always loved that one. My favorite Stones albums would be Some Girls, Black and Blue, Tattoo You, maybe even Emotional Rescue, even though at the time I thought it was very flippant. It reminds me of Police Zenyatta Mondata. It just seems like Stones running on fumes, but now I love it, even though it's just so casual. But for some reason, this is a band that I got into late originally. And then 3 or 4 times over the last 30, 40 years, I've got into late again. And I can't stop thinking about the Stones. I'm just fascinated by that whole situation with that band. And, I've tried to wonder why. And one of the reasons is it feels like the Stones have been there my entire life. So since like 1963, just like Kiss and Rush have been there my entire they're the first bands that I got as new releases my whole life, right? In 74. But the Stones have been there for my entire life. And it reminds me of just like Queen Elizabeth being there your entire life, sort of thing, right? So the Stones and Queen Elizabeth, for some reason. I'm a big monarchist. I'm fine with the monarchy and all that stuff. But yeah, it's just a band that I just find endlessly interesting and fascinating with all the personalities. And I got into them late, and then I got into late like 5 times more, and I'm still getting into them late.
I couldn't stand the Stones growing up. Up until like probably I went to see them on Steel Wheels tour, and I really wasn't a fan. But I enjoyed myself. I really started getting into them in the 90s. I literally like could not stand the Stones growing up.
Yeah.
Didn't like them at all. And now I'm a huge fan, and I love, like Martin kind of talked about the mystique of the band. There's like so much to like learn about the history of them as individuals and as a band. I find them fascinating. Whether you're talking about the really early stuff or the 70s period or the later stuff, it's just such a fascinating band.
Yeah.
Well, man, when Tattoo You came out, it was huge. And that's sort of where I first, latched on to them. And I loved that record. The record that came out afterwards, though, not so much. But I got a copy of It's Only Rock and Roll. I don't know. Somebody gave me a copy. This is years ago. And man, I love that record. I still love that record to this day. It's like just so ballsy, and it's full of like that whole sort of 70s I'm a rock star swagger thing to it that, that I always enjoyed. And
But I remember growing up as a kid feeling that people were impatient with the Stones, and they were like bored with them at that point. There's they're still a huge band, one of the biggest bands in the world, but people were complaining about the Stones for a couple of years there. From that and Goat's Head Soup, and even through Black and Blue, it's like the world was like bored with the idea of the Stones being around, and then all of a sudden Some Girls comes out, and then everybody's happy about them again, right?
Yeah. And you know what? Hackney Diamonds is a pretty damn good record, for a band that's been around this long. And it's yeah, I mean, I did a review of it too. I think it's a pretty good record. I mean, for modern day Stones, I'll take it, But anyway, so for my last one, this is kind of not so much a band that I kind of liked years ago, but I never really dug into them until much more recently. Because this band, on the other hand, had a lot of radio play, and they were at the forefront, and they were, getting a lot of play. And the band I'm talking about is Genesis. I still love Duke. I mean, for me, Turn It On Again and Behind the Lines, those songs are like the perfect marriage of prog and pop. They just fit beautifully together. And then, as we know, they kind of, as more albums future albums came out, the prog kind of went away and the pop sort of took over. But for me, it was going back and listening to the early stuff because I hadn't really done that dive yet, gone back to the Peter Gabriel stuff and their earlier stuff. And man, I mean, like the first couple of records, not so much, but Foxtrot onwards, just amazing records. And the Selling England by the Pound, that for me that's an almost perfect record. I mean, now you've got the long songs, the epics and whatever, but damn, they're good. Like there's so much interesting. It's all ear candy. Every shift, every change, it hooks you and it takes you down all these little paths and things, but it's all really interesting. And and the musicianship is off the charts. And Phil Collins, arguably one of the best drummers in the world, and Peter Gabriel's vocals were just phenomenal. And man, I never went back to the early stuff, and I'm glad I did because there's some really, really good music there. I mean, like my personal favorites, Trick of the Tails, great record, and Steve Hackett too, man. The addition of Steve Hackett too is, he really brought them up a notch too. But yeah, Trick of the Tail, Lamb Lies Down, Foxtrot, and then Duke is another one of my favorites. Just a good band, and a band that is worth the investment of going back to their earlier stuff. Because if all and all you've heard is the radio hits, you go back to their early prog roots, and there's some really, really good music there to be found. So yeah,
nice.
There you go. All right. That was great. Okay, so Martin, what do you got coming up book-wise, contrarians-wise? Want to mention?
Well, nothing coming out so soon, but I do have, you can go to martinpopoff.com. I've got the massive Deep Purple book, the big Dio book, the big Iron Maiden book. Actually, I just got in, although it's not at my site yet, but people can ask me about it and I'll send it out and whatnot, is the update of the Accept book, which is now called Midnight Mover. So that's back in print. I've got the audio podcast still. The latest one just went up, which is about the rock and roll, the retro rock and roll boogie woogie rave songs on records that bands do every once in a while. You think of Accept, Burning, or even In the Mood by Rush almost fits that, right? You include those as examples. And Contrarians, we got stuff all the time, but yeah, check out the audio podcast. And coming out early next year, we got Kiss 76 and a few other things. There's 4 or 5 books in the works that are almost finished, but those are the big ones. The big massive ones through Schiffer, the Dio, the Purple, and the Maiden.
Cool. What about yourself, Pete? What's coming up?
Well, before I do that, someone in the chat mentioned they'd be nice if someone mentioned the band Axe. I almost picked them. They were one of my choices, which someone mentioned King's X. I'm like, oh, how can I forget King's X here? So yeah, I was going to talk about Axe, but coming up on the channel, well, Martin and I will be back tomorrow morning at the Fun House. So tune into that tomorrow morning. And then we've got a very cool Ranking the Album show coming up on Sunday. I'll be ranking the entire catalog of Wasp. So that's
wow.
Sunday, yeah. So that should be tons of fun. A lot of listening going on there. So
yeah,
tune in Sunday for that 10 a.m. Sunday morning Eastern Standard Time.
All right, cool. I'm losing my voice here. So I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank these gentlemen again. We do this once a month, and I would say what's coming up on my channel, but at the moment, I'm back to gigging. Maybe at the end of the month I'll be doing another live show, but right now I'm busy. So anyways, thanks everybody for watching, and guys, hang out for a second, and we'll catch you all next time.
All right.
Cheers.
See you later.